Alrighty. Hey, week 4 in our class. And I was just looking at earlier some of the work that was submitted last night for week 4 Learn Together. And what I really want to acknowledge and appreciate and say how important it is when you're looking at each other's code and you're giving each other feedback. That is such an important thing because and there's a couple of layers of this. First is that we need to check our own code, right? Make sure that when you're writing code, that you're running enough different, you're throwing enough different data at your program to test all aspects of your program. So in my email system, you needed to have made sure you had passed it an invalid email address to make sure that that invalid code handling that was indeed handling it correctly, right? You needed to make sure, and this is one of the areas I saw could definitely and was for some of you, it's like, how are you handling finding one specific email? And I know several of you just used the index, like you assumed the person had an index of the entry of the object in the array, right? And these are things as we move on, and I've said this, you learn, we get to use more technology like Mongo that helps us more easily target individual items when that's the requirement of our data. So just keep that in mind. And but here is what I want you to tell me in your reply. Like, an important part of coding is learning how to debug. And as I recorded week 4 Learn Together, which I did Tuesday of this last week, and I'm recording this at the end of week 3 coming into week 4, I was kind of playing around and opened up because I don't normally use the Chrome debugger for Node. I actually use VS Code. And I'd said in there, but because of when we're using command line and throwing in arguments, it gets a little more challenging, is not the word, just a few more pieces you have to put in place. So today I played with the Chrome tool just to make sure it worked the way I thought it should, and it does. So I went back and again reviewed Andrew's section on this just to go, yep, that does work fine. So here's my question. How do you troubleshoot and figure out if your code's not working, what do you need to change? So what are the tools that you use? I mean, if you're using console.log, that's fine. It works. It just sometimes there's just better tools at your disposal. So what do you use? Do you use the built-in VS Code options, or do you use the one that he talked about? Do you use the command line, right? But whatever you use, it's important to use something, okay? Because as we go further along in this class and write more advanced code, having that skill base of knowing how to debug, troubleshoot your own code is just so important. Saying so important seems like an understatement. I know it's something I get to work on as well. When I write code, I got to make sure that, and this idea of testing is something that this class doesn't cover. But I'm telling you, as the more coding you do, you find out more of the importance of writing testing your own software by running other software and giving it the data. There's just, and it's called test-driven development, to where some coders, programmers, developers will actually write the test before they write the code. So it's how important this is. All right, so I want to take a look just real quick as we move into week 4, right? Which lectures we have this week. So we're going to do the first part of section 6, right? So as we move down through here, right? So we're doing the first part because I put in there that you're actually doing, right? So in scheduling in that you're doing all of section 5 and section 6 this week, half of section 6. And so I did that. And then your Learn Together is just the beginnings of, asynchronous programming. This is what we're going to do. This is the style we'll use for the rest of this course. So having that skill base, or at least beginning that skill base of knowing how to write what is it first, and that's what I love. Andrew's visual here. Can't say enough how important that is to watch multiple times, right? Understanding what is asynchronous and how do you code it? How do you handle when you send your code off to do something and it's going to take a while? How do you handle that because of the way the interpreter runs? Your call stack and understanding that. Just I don't want to keep saying vitally important. So just stress how important that is. Anyway, look forward to, and I know that this is a little smaller class for sure. So that should give us an opportunity to really give each other a lot of good feedback on what we're doing. So thanks for those of you that did that last night. Over the last 24 hours, I appreciate that feedback that you're giving to each other. And for everybody, go back there and look at that feedback that you got. And if you have questions, if you want to talk about it, reach out and let's have that conversation. Have a great Super Bowl weekend.